Okay, I think it's ready. It's time to get started. Welcome to the last session of this show. My name is Peter Niederwieser. For those of you who don't know me, I'm one of the engineers on the GradleWare team. I have my own open source project, Spock. Maybe some of you know it. I used to be a former Groovy committer, but since I started to work for GradleWare, like all my other open source goes away. I mean, it doesn't really go away, but I'm finding it hard to find time for things other than Gradle. This is the talk about Gradle and IDEs. This was originally planned as a 45-minute session, not a 90-minute session. So I'm not sure. I might have to let you go home a little bit earlier, or get here a little bit earlier. There's also Stefan, which will help me out with some of the demos. So first survey, who of you is using Gradle right now? Wow, lots of people. Who isn't using Gradle yet? Okay. And what about IDEs? Eclipse? Needs uses Eclipse? Okay. IntelliJ? Oh, lots of people. Netbeans? Netbeans? That changes my perception. I always thought like Netbeans in the US is what IntelliJ is in Europe, namely the clear number 2. That's what I've been told, but so I'm surprised. Okay, I'll try to show a little bit of everything, probably more so Eclipse than the other IDEs, because Eclipse has the most advanced Gradle support at the moment, and IntelliJ is rapidly catching up. I'm betting my demo on a pre-alpha of IntelliJ 13. It's a build that was sent to me by the developer, so please be patient if it's not so fast or something, but I thought I'd show you what's coming up in IntelliJ 13 rather than what's there in IntelliJ 12, which isn't exactly very exciting. Okay, so we'll talk about the 3 IDEs, mostly demo-driven. I don't have many slides. Who of you is still, how are you integrating Gradle and Eclipse? Who of you is using the Gradle support for generating project files? Okay, and how happy are you with that? Who is somewhat happy with that? Who is extremely happy with that? Oh, one guy, okay. And who is totally unhappy with that, generating project files? Okay. And who is using the IDE? Is someone using IDE plugins in production with Gradle, like Eclipse, Gradle, STS? Okay, and anything else, IntelliJ or Netbeans? Plugins with Gradle? Nobody. Okay, a little bit. Okay, so actually most people are still using the generating project files integration, and hopefully over this year we'll be able to shift you over, because eventually what our goal is that you don't have to leave your IDE unless you want to. Okay, so we already touched a little bit on that. There are 2 forms of IDE integration, the Gradle-centric one and the IDE-centric one, and we never know how to say it. Is it a Gradle Eclipse plugin or Eclipse Gradle plugin? Or usually I do it that way. If it's the Gradle Eclipse plugin, it's the Gradle plugin that generates Eclipse files. If it's the Eclipse Gradle plugin, then it's the plugin for the Eclipse IDE that gets you Gradle support in the IDE. So whatever comes first. And then there is the IDE-centric one, where the IDEs provide a plugin like Netbeans or IntelliJ or IDE or Eclipse. And this is becoming more and more important, or clear is definitely to go to the IDE-centric approach, because that's nowadays what developers expect. They don't want to leave their IDE unless they want to, but it should be their choice. And today, too often, it's not really their choice, but they have to use the shell more often than they possibly want. So we'll mostly focus on demoing the IDE-centric approach, but we'll also show off a few of the capabilities of generating project files. So for that, we need a demo app. Something that we want to run and work with in our IDEs. And I've tried a few, and I've chosen Spring Pet Clinic. So some of you might know that. That's the Spring demo web app. Basically implements a web application where you can manage your pets and your patients as a veterinarian. A Spring-based web application, and I modded it a little bit to make it more interesting. turned it into a multi-project Gradle build. Used to be a single project build. Turned it into a multi-project build and applied a few IDE plugins so that we get support for other IDEs. Okay, let's start out with IntelliJ IDEA. So there was initial support in 12, but we weren't exactly happy with it. And it would work for an initial import of a Gradle project into IntelliJ, but not much else. Good news is they completely overhauled that for 13, so they rewrote it from scratch and are still working on that. And the developer was kind enough to send me, like last night, first developer snapshot, and I'm betting all my hopes on that thing. But I hope that I'll be able to show basic capabilities of the new plugin. The nice thing is it now uses the Gradle tooling API, which is our official interface for all tools that want to interface. IntelliJ 12 used to bypass that, and now they are back on track, maybe because due to the Android Studio thing, because Android now also is their build is based on Gradle. I mean, their build system, the command line build system, now they have Android Studio, so they probably want to give Android developers the same experience from Android Studio, and the backbone of Android Studio is IntelliJ. So I think that explains where there's a lot of activity implementing better Gradle support in IntelliJ. So what are the capabilities of the new plugin? You can import, initial import, and get up and running. At least for Pet Clinic, it worked really well. I got up and running without having to do anything. Then you can make changes to your Gradle build scripts, and it will sync them. The new thing is in 13 you can execute Gradle tasks. You couldn't do that before. You would have dropped to the console to execute the real Gradle build. Now you can do it from the IDE, and there's some initial editing support for your build scripts. That's already much better than in 12, because in 12 you would get lots of syntax errors in your Gradle build scripts just because it couldn't make sense of them. It was smart enough to notice it's something, it's some Groovy file, but it wouldn't understand it and would give you in the editor. It was almost impossible to edit a Gradle build script in IntelliJ because it would pop up with lots of strange things, and that's a thing of the past. So it's looking really good. It's the first build ever that contains IntelliJ support, but it's looking already better than what we had in IntelliJ 12. So let me give that a try. Okay, so this is in the background you see Eclipse, but this is IntelliJ 13, and I have my recent project Spring Pet Clinic. So the first thing I need to do, of course, I need to install a Gradle plugin, right? The IDEs, I mean, you need to first install a plugin like an Eclipse, and then you can use it. Okay, so let's do that. Done, because the nice thing is it ships with IntelliJ. So it's a built-in plugin, you don't have to install anything separately. That's the first nice thing about it. Okay, so now we say import project, and we give it the path, and I'm here Spring Pet Clinic, and you see that it understands the build.gradle because there's this small Gradle icon next to it, so it understands it, and it says Gradle build script, so I select that, build.gradle, and open it. Next screen. So Gradle project you can select. I already selected that. You can there's an auto import option, and the idea is whenever you make a change to the build script, it will update the IDE automatically. And that's really a very good idea, but for the time being, I'm not activating it because you can't really author build scripts anymore. Because while you're authoring, it already tries to make sense of it and re-imports the project. So far it's not good enough. Unless you make simple version changes. If you just change the version of your dependencies, it worked really well for me. But if you want to really hack on your build scripts in IntelliJ, then for the time being, I would not check that thing. Then, if you happen to use the Gradle wrapper, then use that in the IDE as well. We'll make sure that the IDE will use exactly the same version of Gradle that you use on the command line. So that's a really nice thing to have. And it automatically found my Gradle home even, but here I'm using the wrapper. Okay, so let's push the button and pray. The initial import takes a little bit. Is there something we can improve about the tooling API? Or is it just that much work? Maybe it's just that much work. Okay, so I'm here with my Spring Pet Clinic, and everything looks good. I mean, did you ever try it with IDEA 12? It would now explode with red marks and so on, so that's already...
12.3 actually started working.
Yeah. But that's a new one in 13. And now let's have a look what it set up for us. Maybe we should look at the build.gradle for a second. And I should probably increase the size of that. It's not yet a Mac version. If you see here, it looks like Linux or something. So it makes it a little bit hard to find things. But there is this good trick here. I want settings or preferences. Did I get that?
It's F4 at the project level. If you, yes.
No, I want the generic preferences, not these ones. But I want to change the font size. Is it not defined? So
it's the icon with the range.
Font size. Okay, change font size. It's too complicated for me.
You can pinch, Peter, you can pinch on the editor.
I'm not sure how to do it in 13.
Peter, you can try pinching in the editor. It worked for me.
Not in 13 pre-alpha. So can you somehow make sense of the build script?
Command pinch.
Yeah, you're on your own then.
Okay, so it's a fairly regular build. We don't have to look a lot at the build actually. It builds one war, and we apply the IDEA plugin for IDEA and the Eclipse plugin for Eclipse. Otherwise, I mostly left it in its current state. I didn't touch it too much. Okay, maybe since we're already talking about the build script, it would be really good to crank up there. Usually the preferences are here and it's really simple, but in 13, now I remember, other settings. Other settings, here, that's it. Everything is different in 13. I'm not sure I'll be able to crank it up, I'm sorry for that. Anyone knows how to change the font size?
Go to group, yes, coast.
I know how to do it in 12, but not in 11. In 13. Okay, we'll have to try it like this. So it has basic editing support. First of all, it knows the Gradle API. If I say project object, I can even navigate to that. It doesn't have the sources, but it understands the class. That's already quite an improvement over 12. It seems to do the auto import nevertheless, although I said no, and that's the kind of thing you get. It tries auto import all the time. So let's try something else. Let's add some dependencies. Dependencies block, and it completes it. Dependencies. And then in here, let's see whether I can do compile. It even kind of can do compile scope. Therefore, dependency you're on your own. You don't get dependency. That would be cool, and I think we'll see it at some point. That it will just go out to its index. There's an index of Central or something, and can help you complete your dependency declarations. But at least you get already runtime. It knows that as well. So it's already some. The first,
but it's you don't have Java applied in your root, so it's
yeah. So dependencies is the real thing, and I think there is some heuristics going on simply. So it's not.
They assume that compiling runtime is generally available.
Yeah. So it's not really deep that it completely understands the Gradle build script, but it understands parts of it, and for the other parts it makes some educated guesses like it does for languages like Ruby. And the funny thing is sometimes this support works better than that for static languages like Scala, where the IDE still kind of has a hard time of making sense of that. So as repositories, I tried that. Repositories can do that. And Maven Central, I think you can do that as well. Maven Central. So there's some initial support, but there's a lot of guessing still. That's it for editing. In terms of how I set up my project, if it wouldn't always do the auto import, although I told it not to. So okay, it created a project with 2 or 3 modules. 3 modules. Spring Pet Clinic is the root. Then there is a model and a web. These are the sub-projects of my multi-project build. And for all of them, it set up the sources correctly. It excluded, that's also a big improvement over previous versions, it excludes the .gradle and build directory, so they no longer show up in your IDE. So it gets the basic quite right. Same for the web project, sets it up, and the parent project doesn't have any sources, so it only has the excludes, but doesn't have any sources. So it's a decent setup. Pet Clinic isn't the most complex project in the world, but it's also not the most simple one. I mean, it's already multi-project with war and so on, so it's not completely trivial. And it also set up my dependencies, so obviously a root project doesn't have any dependencies, but here you see the dependencies of the model project, mostly compile dependencies, few runtime and test. IntelliJ IDEA has these 4 Maven-like scopes, which is already better than Eclipse, so you can't do such fine-grained dependency handling as you can do on the Gradle side, but at least it has 4 different scopes and it maps them correctly from the scopes you specify in the Gradle build script. So what you get is out of the box without doing anything is already quite usable, given that this is the first developer build of that thing. You see here it looks like a Linux. The menu isn't up there as it usually is for an app, for a Mac app. So I don't know what he provided me with, but it's a start. Okay, we can run a full build of that thing, and we shouldn't get any compile errors. Last time it built fine, this time it doesn't. I think, let me check. Yeah, we should give it that, just rename that class. That's an experiment for later, so if I fix my source code again, then it should build. Let's do a full rebuild. Okay, set up the multi-project build so that it can build it. I should also be able to run tests in the usual way. That's proof that test class path is set up correctly. Yeah. So it looks quite promising. We could try some more advanced tests in the other project. I think there are some more interesting ones. So something involving JDBC and the Spring Test Framework. If we run that. Last time I tried it worked. Yes, everything is green. Okay, so the basic setup out of the box is quite good. What else can you do? There's one new thing. First of all, it's no longer named Gradle, but now Gradle. It's really great. And the tasks are no longer named target, but task. So it's now Gradle terminology everywhere. Really nice. They also seem to like our logo. And here's the initial really new thing. You can now run similar to what you may have seen in Eclipse. You see all the tasks of that build and can run them from the IDE, the Gradle build. Because by default, IntelliJ still has its own build system, right? Today's IDEs, most of them are their own build tools. And we eventually want to change that, but for IntelliJ it's still the case. For Android Studio, they already switched it around. So whenever Android Studio builds something, it invokes Gradle. Even if you stay completely in the IDE and just do your regular IDE work, Gradle is always doing the heavy lifting of building your code. That's where we want to move everyone to, because we think there should be just one build tool and it should behave exactly the same on your CI server, on your command line, and in your IDE. But in IntelliJ, they still have their own build system, but you can already, via the IDE, invoke the Gradle builds, let's say, before you push your changes out to...
Is that a goal by final 13 release?
That's a goal for.
I've heard it both ways.
That's a goal for Gradle. That's our goal to switch them over. I'm not exactly sure. If I would have to make a guess, I think that I know Android Studio will always work that way, right? But I don't think that they will completely get rid of their own build tool in 30. I mean, I would be surprised.
If you have the influence, if you could influence them to at least make it an option.
To build completely, yeah, that would be really cool, yeah. And I think they're making the underlying changes because Android Studio and IntelliJ, they have the same base, right? And at the end of the day, Android Studio, that's a regular IntelliJ plugin. You can even install it in the regular IntelliJ IDEA. They just package it up as a standalone thing, like Scala IDE in Eclipse, right? So I think there are good chances, and we'll do our best that there will be an option. But I don't think we can get rid of the build system already.
What's quite interesting is that Android plugins actually using extension points provided by the Gradle plugin in IntelliJ. So in theory, the Android plugin is a plugin for the Gradle plugin, who is a plugin for IntelliJ. Kind of. Something like that.
Yeah, so it's moving in the right direction, let's put it this way. Okay, so let's give this a try. You see here, I made it a multi-project build. And so here, it's also kind of multi-project. So here's the top Spring Pet Clinic, but it understands that there are sub-projects, and it shows me all the right tasks for them. Depending on which plugins I apply, I will get different tasks here. And it's smart enough to understand which tasks are available. And here it's not guessing. Here it's using our tooling API, and it asks Gradle for this information. So this is absolutely accurate. Okay, so now let's try a full build. Right now you can't double-click, but you can run it. And now this is invoking the Gradle build, hopefully. Yes, it's starting. No, it's failing. Oh, it's still the same thing I had before. Maybe let me first try to clean it. I have better chances to make that work. Well, that was really fast. You see, it's all really fast. We run Gradle clean for the whole multi-project build, and it's like instant. And that's due to what we'll talk about a little bit later, the Gradle daemon. So there's a Gradle process in the background and all the build commands are sent to that process. And that stays alive for a long time, so that we don't have to start up the Gradle runtime with each invocation. Okay, now I'll try it one more time. Hopefully I didn't mess it up. So build, run, no. Oh, duplicate class, yeah, okay. I can fix that because there's some code generation going on there, and let's see, model, and here I have a model Gradle, and I should be able to remove that. Source set. So if I no longer generate anything, then let me try again. Anyway, it's now Gradle failing, so obviously that's no longer an IDEA issue here. Yeah, it's starting to look better. Sometimes it's still hanging. That's guess why it's the first developer build. But come on. Yeah, let's say it's still pre-alpha. That's the process. So IntelliJ is throwing something at me. What I could do, I have a couple of Gradle daemons running here, so I could try to kill them, and maybe this will help. I'm not exactly sure. So it's not really stable yet, but it's not even publicly downloadable yet. The first EAP didn't have that functionality, it was just Android Studio. Okay, one more left. And then I'll try it one more time. And otherwise you have to believe me that it's not IntelliJ's fault. Now it could take a bit longer because it has to start up the daemon. It does at least something. Yeah, it's looking better now. So now we run basically the same thing as if I had executed from the command line. Just I don't have to leave my IDE, and it's done. Okay, so finally I got it working. I could also run just a sub-project. If I'm just working there, I can run that guy. And that's, now everything is up to date. That's also, of course, now the full build is much faster, right? So I do a full rebuild without a clean, and it should be really fast now. 1.2 seconds. So that could, even if it replaced Gradle's IntelliJ's built-in engine, that would already give some decent performance with 1 second for a kind of build without any changes. Yeah, so that's most of what is available right now. There aren't any further configuration options. It doesn't pick up some things, like for example, here the Java version, our tooling API would tell it that. if you in the build script change the source compatibility, then it will affect that version, but I didn't see any changes there. So it seems they haven't yet connected the dots there. But that's also our tooling API provides already quite a lot of information for them. So it's just a matter.
It should be on the module level, I think.
On the module level?
Yeah.
Oh, is it? Here it says language level 6. Use project language level.
Okay.
So I haven't seen it yet, but that's certainly something that's coming. Currently, what you can do, you can change the versions of the dependencies. So let's try that for a second. I go in the root build.gradle and change, let's say, JUnit is always an easy one. I change the version of JUnit in my build script. And here, obviously, the auto import is enabled, although I tried to disable it. So it re-imports more or less the project. And it should already have now changed its dependency to JUnit 4.10.
So it's triggered on save?
No, it's triggered on you don't type for a second. And that's why I don't recommend it to use it at this time. And I tried to.
Or type really fast, you don't get
I tried to disable it this time, but it's still enabled, although I didn't check it. So let's see, where was that? That was the, okay, so we need to go in one of them, and then, the dependencies are down there. So JUnit, let's see, yeah, I changed it to JUnit 4.10. So I just added this build script and got JUnit 4.10. So that's a start already, much better at least. I mean, it's small steps, much better than we had in IntelliJ 12. And it's will only be released end of the year, right? So they have still lots of time to improve this stuff. And we'll help them too. Okay, that's what's there for IntelliJ 13. Do you have any questions on that? Pre-alpha email sent developer build.
Well, what about support for task rules where the tasks are dependent on whatever you put on the command line?
Task rules, you mean?
Yeah.
Whether they show up there, you mean?
Well, I mean, if it can be gathered from the plugins, like the compile test job is showing up, right?
Mm-hmm.
But let's say you have some task rule where it generates the task from whatever you put on the command line.
Yeah, let's see. For example, I don't think. There's also a way you can always customize that. It's every build that you trigger here is a run configuration, so you can invoke anything here that's a task rule, but they don't currently, I think you cannot do it yet via the interface. But you can tweak these things here, at least in theory, because it doesn't work yet, that's why I'm not showing it. But you can here list any, I try things like clean build, and you can make any run configuration. It's similar to Eclipse, where in Eclipse every Gradle build is a tool configuration, and here it's a run configuration. So you get a new type here, Gradle, and you also have it in the defaults, and you can give it some VM options by default that it passes on to the Gradle daemon when you run the build.
So I don't think that the task rules will be supported soon, like at the level that they are showed up in this task, because tooling API does not provide this information yet. So even if JetBrains wanted to show that, they can't at the moment because we don't provide that yet.
What is it handing along for like the Java home? Because I know Java home, because I know in 12 you have to go and mess with the script.
Yeah, so what I did is when I set up IntelliJ, I once configured the SDK. I didn't configure anything when I imported it. I'm not sure whether that was coincidence, but I definitely had to. It's a global setting in IntelliJ which JDKs are available to IntelliJ, and that it didn't set up. That would be really nice. Yeah, that's maybe something we should look into. So Gradle already knows which JDK it uses and which JDK the build uses. So that would be really nice. Would get us one step closer to provisioning everything.
So in 12, you bring it up. First thing you do is try and run Gradle, and it says, I can't find the correct Java home.
Yeah.
It's only got a JRE or something.
Yeah, it worked for me. I mean, I set it up once, but not specific for this thing. Once after I installed IntelliJ, and then after they imported it worked. But to be honest, I'm not sure if I was lucky or if that was a feature. But it worked for me. Another nice thing is you have here the recent tasks, so you can run again what you ran recently. You have these favorites, so that's already a good start. Actually, I think it's there now. I mean, in terms of running multi-project build, it's better than Eclipse, right? Because I can run the whole thing recursively from here, not just the root.
Yeah, that's interesting that they have this.
Yeah. Okay, so much for IntelliJ. Let's move on to something else. Yeah, so that what we saw in initial import. We synced after we changed the dependencies. We executed some Gradle task, and we saw some initial editing support. And already it's, I mean, in IntelliJ 12, I reconfigured .gradle to be a text file because that worked better than because otherwise it recognized that it's groovy, but didn't understand the class part of the build script, so it was uneditable in the IDE. And now it has the whole class part of the Gradle build script, which is great. Okay. So next thing, Netbeans. I think I'd like to spend more time on Eclipse because don't have a single Netbeans user here. So let's first do the Eclipse stuff. It works better anyway from my experience. So Eclipse, it's developed by the STS team, by the Spring Source folks. The nice thing is they have a standalone plugin. So in the very, very early days of their plugin, you would have to install STS. And while there are many people that like STS, Spring Source Tool Suite, there are also many people who hate it. And probably because many of them, if you're not living in the Spring ecosystem, then there's not much point installing STS. So there's a standalone plugin. You don't need the rest of it. So it's quite slim actually by now. It supports a wide range of Eclipse versions, 3.6 to 4.3. 3.6 is not officially, with the latest version of the plugin, 3.6 is not officially supported anymore. They say it should still work, but they only test against 3.7 or higher. One problem I sometimes have when I do client consulting, I come in a WebSphere house and they have WebSphere integration developer or something, and it's based on Eclipse 3.4. That's just the reality in some shops. So then you are unfortunately out of luck. But I mean, you could try with a very, very old version maybe of the Eclipse Gradle plugin, but with the latest, you probably don't have to try below 3.6. But that's already a couple of years old. And as always, like I went to the latest release candidate of 4.3 for the demo, because that worked best for me for the pet clinic. Not in terms of the Gradle plugin, that works great with 3.7, but I had some JSP related problems when I prepared the demo, and I couldn't believe it, and they told me I have to install Eclipse, it's an Eclipse problem, 4.3 RC7 or higher to make like a pet clinic work without warnings in the IDE. So I did that and it solved the JSP warning problem, some schema that it couldn't find or something. Okay, in terms of capabilities, you have an import and a sync. You also have a re-import, so you can choose to import just a portion of your multi-project build. So you don't always have to import the whole thing, and that's already a big deal, because if you really have tons and tons, like dozens or hundreds of sub-projects, then importing the whole thing might be a bit much for Eclipse, and it might not make a whole lot of sense if you're only working in one corner of the huge build. Why should you always have to import everything into your workspace? So you can do a partial import. You can, of course, execute builds similar to what we've seen for IntelliJ, and there's also some editing support. It's also basic, but the base capability is there. And I started to hack a little bit on that because it's basically everyone can extend the editing support. So maybe Gradleware will help them out a little bit and make the editor more powerful and more fun to use. So let's have a look at that. So for who is using Eclipse 4 as a development? And who is using Eclipse 3.x? And the rest of the room is no longer using Eclipse? Like all hands went up first. Okay, so half maybe. I still see lots of people using 3.7 or something, but I'll try my luck with 4.3 RC7. Okay, so first of all, again, I have to get the pet clinic into Eclipse. So I go to import, and there I now have Gradle, and I can say import Gradle project. By the way, both IntelliJ and Eclipse can also create a new Gradle project. So if you have a wizard for both of them for creating a new project, that I didn't show, I'm only showing the import, because usually that's the more interesting one. You already have your Gradle build and want to import it. Okay. So now we selected it, and first of all we have to click the build model. That's when Eclipse will communicate with the Gradle tooling API, with the Gradle daemon via the tooling API to ask Gradle about this build. So we click that. First time takes a little bit.
Why doesn't it just do that?
That's a good question, yeah. Maybe it should just do that.
Because when you import a Maven or a directory, it'll look for its own project.
Yeah, so it obviously knows already import Gradle project, so maybe we should just ask them to do it automatically. The thing is, you have something pre-selected there, but you can still mess with that, with the path of the project you want to open. So yeah, but probably the UI could be improved that as soon as say, no, I actually haven't selected it yet, that's the reason. I'm just saying I'm opening some Gradle project, and then this one is some default I entered last time, but it's not yet clear which Gradle build I want to import. So first I enter it here, and then I click build model.
But then if you had browsed for it, you could have.
Yeah, it would probably there's a way to improve the UI, I agree. Okay, so again I have my root project and the two sub-projects. And let me try initially just to import one sub-project to show that I can work with a partial view in my IDE. There are lots of options. For example, enable DSL support. This is what gets you the editing support in the IDE. It's still basic, but nevertheless, this is what gets you that. Stefan, can you explain what the run before and run after, what you would use them for?
So it's, okay, I'm not sure if I'm right, but I think it's because tooling API may not provide all the information as the DS team wants. Therefore, they use our standard Eclipse plugins that generate the metadata, and then they can parse that metadata and sort of fill the gaps in the model they're building.
Yeah, so I haven't touched that by default. It will run some Gradle Eclipse tasks on that one first import.
So basically, it's safe to just keep it checked. And
yeah.
One example that we use is we build OSGI bundles, and we don't want to have the manifest checked in, so we do a run after to generate the manifest so we can run it in Eclipse.
Yeah. So also, if you want to do some code generation or something, generate something in your Gradle build which you don't have, where you don't have the equivalent in your IDE, you can hook that task up here, and during import, let the Gradle build generate and put it on the glass path of the Eclipse build.
That's a good use case, yeah.
So of course, once we had this deeper integration where Gradle is the build engine for the IDE, all of that will go away, because like managing the differences between your Gradle build and your Eclipse build, that's not exactly exciting. But at least here it's a pragmatic way that anything that the Gradle build can do that the Eclipse build cannot do, you can run it on import. Okay, let's try that. So just model. Let's see. I probably want the root project as well, but I don't the root project and the model. Let me try that. See, it runs the tasks here. It's taking a little bit, but we got something. So let's have a look. So this is the root project. Here we can again edit our build.gradle if I find it. And the nice thing is that the plugin makes it quite possible to work with hierarchical directory layouts in Eclipse, but because usually that's always a problem. Many teams that use Eclipse, they use a flat directory layout where all the directories are siblings of each other in a multi-project build, for example, because otherwise it's very hard to work in this flat workspace that Eclipse provides, because you basically from the root project you see through to its children, because it's not filtered, and so you see the children twice. You could navigate from the root here down to the children, or in the sub-project model. This is the same thing, and that makes it awkward to work with that in Eclipse. But the Eclipse Gradle plugin adds filters to the root project, so that it becomes it's easier to deal with that. Okay, so now we have our build.gradle, and we can give the editing a try. So let's try if it knows something about the repositories block. Repositories. So it even has the overload with the closure. So I can select that and can. So that was really known. So that was not a guess. If I remove the declaration repositories, it really knows about it. I'm not sure if it knows about Maven Central. It does, even. Maven local, Maven repo. Only question is why doesn't it know about IDE? It's kind of interesting. It knows everything about Maven. Oh, it even has our Java doc. So that's already a little bit the next step. At least for the outermost parts of the build scripts. That's what I guess.
I know why it doesn't show IDE, because you've typed Maven.
Okay. That's
Control
yeah. IDE with our Java doc. So that's already something. At least for the basics of your build script, you're probably past that already. But for someone new with it, that's the first step. So I had Maven Central. Let's keep it at that. Dependencies block, I think it knows as well. Yeah, it knows that. I don't think it understands the scopes yet. No. But at least I think the class path, I can try that. Yeah, yes, or Gradle API, it was. So it has the build script, the basic build script class path, it gets that right already. So it's already definitely better than a text editor, but it's not the full smartness. So for example, what could we do? Apply the Java plugin that gives us a compile Java task. That would be kind of already the next step. So now if I can complete compile Java, I would be surprised. So I can't do that yet. So it's more or less static completion. It knows that this build script is in the context of a project class and can complete that, but it doesn't know that this Java plugin extends the build language, introduces tasks, adds the concept of source sets, because then it would really have to semantically make sense of that build script, and that it doesn't currently do. Okay, so let's see if I can build that. I haven't tried that yet. So quickly build.
It's got build automatically set. What's it going to do? Use its own compiler, or it's going to use Gradle?
Yeah, no, it's using its own compiler, its own build tool. I didn't see a lot when I ran it. Maybe.
Is it smart enough to understand the dependencies that you might put on the compiled task? So, for example, you want to generate some Java source code, kind of thing. You know, you go and you edit the file that would have triggered that task. Had this been a command line Maven command line Gradle build.
So if the Gradle build generates some sources,
yeah,
you have to run that task on import. There was this run those tasks on import. So now if you it doesn't automatically know that it has to call into the Gradle build and regenerate some sources or something that it doesn't know. So after the import, you are in the Eclipse world, and you live there, or you execute the Gradle build through Eclipse, and there is a few. Let's see.
So even if the Java task in the build.gradle had depended on the task that generates the code, and Eclipse has digested that model, it doesn't know to run that.
It doesn't know, no. Eclipse, if you build within Eclipse, it will never call out into Gradle. Only if you explicitly do. Like here you have a similar view like you had in IntelliJ, where it shows you all the tasks, and there you're running the command line build in the output window, basically. As long as you don't do that, you live in the Eclipse world for now.
That's one of the problems that in the Maven world, the M2 Eclipse guys solved, though clumsily,
yes,
they solved it with the connectors.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
Plugins. Ugly as all get out, but
yeah,
it's a tough problem.
Yeah, it is, yeah. Yeah, and with Android Studio, we are on the same way already, because Android Studio, that IntelliJ edition, they do it already. So I think for IntelliJ, it's not that far away. For Eclipse, I'm not sure. It's certainly our ambition to go there with Eclipse as well. Because we think there should be one build tool. We specialize in the build tool, and Eclipse specializes in the IDE. That's our vision for IDE support.
Well, I'm from Android. We are planning on adding the same support that we have for Gradle Studio inside Eclipse, because we're still supporting Eclipse on chain. So it will happen in the next few months. I don't know exactly when.
Very cool.
For Android,
yeah, for Android. But we're planning on adding whatever hooks we need in the STS plugin to be able to support
Android for Eclipse. Yeah, cool. So then you will get similar experience, at least the Android people, and they will take out over the world anyway, if they haven't already. So the biggest platform in the world will then have the same Grails support in Eclipse and IntelliJ, which is really cool. Okay, so we can run a few tasks here. So let me first maybe complete the import. I can now decide to import more than I already have. I can change anytime my scope. Right now I only imported model and don't have web imported, but I can change that simply by doing import again, next, and build model. Here it would be nice if it would do it automatically, and now it only offers me to import web because I already imported model. And so far, by the way, model depends on web. It would take the web code from the Gradle code base. So it would take the class files that Gradle produces from web if I just imported model but not web. And now I'm also moving web into the Eclipse world, and now it will build everything in the IDE. That's how it currently works. So add that. I can't do next. That's the problem. I already imported the leaf. That's tricky, so now it should work. Again, it ran this task. This is the time where you could run your code generation or something, and it would then, what would work, it would automatically end up on the compile class path of Eclipse, whatever, or on the source path of Eclipse, whatever you choose. If you generate sources, Eclipse will see the sources that it will compile. If you generate some resources or something, it will put it on the Eclipse class path. So that part works, but it's not yet like you have to play. You have to communicate yourself between the two sides. You have to make up for that. Okay. So now again, should be able to compile everything on the Eclipse side. Eclipse builds extremely fast. Get some error there. Some test. Probably again related to my first change, which I should never have done. Oh yeah, I played around with in the other demo I played around with the JUnit version, and I think that's the reason why that's the reason why some assert it can't find now. If we comment that line out, and then clean our project.
That's the way to go. Remove the assertion.
Okay, we should be fine. Okay, so we did a re-import. Now we have everything in the IDE. We can run the whole thing here, Gradle. We could try clean. Where's the clean? I can change the scope there, which project I want to build. So just the model, for example, just the build of the model. It's similar to what we have in IntelliJ. And you have the Gradle build in your console. It's not super exciting, but at least if you don't want to use the console, just run a quick Gradle build. You can do it now. Okay, is there anything else I wanted to show for Eclipse? I've done a report. I never changed the dependencies, so I could play the same game and change a dependency in the build script and could easily update it. So we could give that a quick try. So maybe that will allow us to solve that problem. We could go back to JUnit2013. And then the way you do it is that there's a Gradle menu, and you can say, for example, refresh dependencies, and then it calls out into the tooling API and gets the information. And if we're lucky, it has now updated the dependency. So where was that? I think it was web. Where is it? Gradle dependencies here. So JUnit. Yeah, now it's changed it to 4.11. So that's the same thing. But here you have to do it explicitly, whereas IntelliJ is really smart. Every second, like while you're typing, it's doing it automatically. So it's the same thing basically.
I think I'm just very sorry, but they just merged both the main and the test source set.
That's how we currently do it. There are really just two ways in Eclipse you can do it, because this class path here, there's just one class path in Eclipse. It doesn't have a concept of scope. And so most people drop everything there, even all the transitive dependencies, the runtime dependencies, which is of course highly undesirable, because in your IDE you don't want to see that, because you don't, you know what I mean? You write on some code, you depend on some library that depends on something else. You should only see your direct dependencies, the things that you're supposed to use, right? But in Eclipse, you always have an always global class path. And you see way too much in your editor, and then if you later run the Gradle build will call you back and will tell you, hey, you're not supposed to use that class, right? So there's again a mismatch between Eclipse and Gradle. There's one way you could overcome that, is that as the regular Eclipse class path, you just pass the compile class path, and then the whole runtime thing you do with run configurations, because run configurations can have their own class path. So that's how you could model it a bit better in Eclipse. But I think it's really painful, because if you then automatically, you often create a run configuration implicitly every time you run a JUnit test. And it would be quite hard to set it up that way. So we don't currently do it. We throw everything together when we create the Eclipse class path. Test, runtime, compile.
Oh, so you're the one doing that on the Gradle side when you...
Yeah, that's how we're presenting it to Eclipse. I'm not sure if there's a better mapping. I mean, we could try to go the run configuration way, but most other people that use Eclipse in some other way do it the same way. They throw everything together, which of course is not desirable, but that's what we currently do. It's better in IntelliJ because they have at least the 4 scopes, the Maven scopes, so it's already better separated.
Do you have anything that will expose the actual class path? For example, I'm doing OSGI bundles and deeply nested embedded jars and all the whole works.
I'm not sure. I mean, do you mean some special support for OSGI that we would understand the OSGI descriptor and that describes the class path?
I've modeled it in Gradle. So the class path I'm presenting in the Gradle build is getting filtered. But in order to do that, I actually have to build dummy jars that are only exporting the visible scope classes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I got that to work in Gradle. But even exporting to IntelliJ, when we run the IntelliJ IDEA plugin, we use a post hook and go edit the IntelliJ XML files in order to readjust the scopes, because the scopes isn't powerful enough by itself to.
Yeah, I mean, when the scope, the IntelliJ scope is not powerful enough, then you're out of options on the IntelliJ side.
Well, we can get it to work, but we have to manually order it. We can't take the default orders.
I see.
We have to actually.
So it's more
say,
an
this
order.
Is before this, is before this in your lookup.
I mean, you do have some control over the class path that we expose to the IDEs. If you configure our IDE plugins, this is also what the tooling API presents. So you can configure the IDEA plugin and the class path is there, and the Eclipse plugin and the class path is there, and that's used both when we do the project generation and also the IDE plugins will be sensible to that information. So then it's just a matter if that lets you express order, for example.
Well, unfortunately, it doesn't, which is why we have to do surgery on it.
Yeah, so maybe we should get in contact. I mean, we already are in contact, but maybe we should take a closer look at that. Okay, I think this is most of what I wanted to show. So here's how this is implemented. You see here, this is the class path that Eclipse has for Gradle build scripts. So a few Gradle jars that are on there, this is how it understands the Gradle build scripts. And there's also DSLD support, and that's where they implement additional support. And in this file, they describe the Gradle build language. This is a Groovy Eclipse feature, and it's a language for describing the Gradle build language. And that's why it's currently fairly static, but it gets you the entry point, so it knows that the whole build script evaluates in the context of a project object, and that there is a repositories block, and that the repositories block maps to a repository handler object, and that's why it can complete Maven Central and this kind of thing. Where this falls flat is this thing. I'm adding a configuration named runtime here, and that's down in the dependencies block. I can now assign dependencies to runtime, right? So these semantic dependencies, we could possibly hardcode them. Maybe that would actually be a possibility if at least our Gradle plugins start to ship with such descriptors. That would be a way to get a potential way to get better IDE support that's even plugin specific. But we aren't there yet. Okay, Stefan, do you want to show some project file generation?
Yeah, I guess so.
How much time do we have? Yeah, we still have plenty of time.
Let me just prepare a little bit.
Do you want to do it on yours?
Yeah.
Okay, so do you need anything else to set up? Or are you ready?
No, I'm ready. Projecting.
Okay, yeah, just a second. Okay, just a second. So, what did we see? Installation, I didn't show. The easiest way to install the plugin is the marketplace. So where's the marketplace here? Eclipse marketplace, and then if I have internet, yeah, it takes a little bit, but then you search for Gradle, and then it should offer you Gradle integration for Eclipse, and then it's just a few clicks away. That's how I always install the Eclipse plugin, Eclipse Marketplace. You could also add what is it called, the installation site, the old way how you used to do it. That works perfectly fine as well, but the most convenient way is to use the Eclipse Marketplace to install the Eclipse plugin. So it doesn't come with Eclipse like it comes built in with IntelliJ. You have to do a one-time install of the plugin. Okay. So what did we see? A little bit of editing support. We didn't see much about dealing with generated sources. But we talked about it when on the import you run the generation task, and then it will automatically understand if you add new source folders in the Gradle build script, it will pick them up and it will see them and compile them itself. But the source generation you have to do when you import the project. So on import you can say run my task generate sources, for example, and it will then, and if that is under source folder, source main generated sources, for example, this will become another source folder in Eclipse, and from then on you will compile this thing in Eclipse. But whenever you want to regenerate the sources, you have to drop back to Gradle at this time. Okay, are you ready?
Yeah, so can you plug in the projector, and I'm gonna do a little bit of introduction. So this morning I had a session on Gradle dealing with large projects. One thing that I haven't finished demoing, which is also interesting from the standpoint of the IDE, is that if we have a very large Gradle project, and let's say we are happy with running the build from the command line, and it's building everything, all the submodules, but we want to have some way to conveniently import to the IDE only the relevant projects that we are working on. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to reuse this semi-big multi-project build that I already have. And I'm going to try to add some hacks so that the IntelliJ configuration that gets generated allows me to work on the specific projects only. And so let's try. I'm not sure if I succeed, but let's see in like 20 minutes, but let's see. So
that's the file generation, by the way, right? We're now no longer using the IDE plugins, but we're doing this baseline Gradle support, generate project files, and then open them in the IDE. And I have one story on that, why I think we'll always keep that approach. It seems primitive in 2013, like from the command line generate the Eclipse files, but many years back I was a Maven IntelliJ guy, and the Maven support wasn't as good as it is today. It's partly as good because I filed, I think, about 200 bucks for IntelliJ for the Maven support, and now today it's really excellent. But back then I had the problem, from time to time I was editing my POM and wanted to re-import in IntelliJ, and sometimes it didn't work. And sometimes I was stuck for half a day. I couldn't get any work done for half a day because I couldn't re-import that. So then they also had this file generation approach, Maven IDEA. And I said, oh, thank God, I still have that. And they stopped supporting that. So they said, why do we need that? We now have this cool IDE integration. We no longer support the file generation. And that meant I was stuck for half a day, every 2 months or something like that. And I begged them, tell them, please bring it back. I just want some baseline support. I don't need anything fancy. I just need to compile in my IDE. But they gave up on that. And that was a lesson for me that we'll keep the baseline support around, even once the IDE support is really great. It's good if anything goes wrong with a new version of anything, then you should at least be able to get up and working quickly.
So the traditional approach, generation of the metadata, you might find it old school, but it's ultimately very robust, and it'll just solve all the cases because you have ultimate control on the shape of those XML files, this metadata, and you can shape it in a way that it'll just import your project and it'll just work. And it's very important for like complicated projects and like mid-sized projects where like those IDE integrations, deep integrations might not just cope with. Yeah. Okay, so I have this large projects. It has 50 sub-projects, and let's generate the IntelliJ configuration for them. So it's going to take some time, and I'm using this traditional plugin. Metadata is generated for every single project. And let's import that to the IDE, and I'll show you how it looks. So IPR. So it's now loading. And maybe 50 projects is still bearable, so tolerable. But at LinkedIn, there are 2,000 sub-modules. And it only works on their hardware, because apparently it's possible to load their 2,000 module build, and apparently it's really working, and it does not take a day. But I think in reality what we are after is some convenient way to focus ourselves on the projects that are relevant to us. So I'm going to start demoing it out. So the end goal is that I want to be able to generate IDEA metadata in a way that it focuses only on the project that I really want to work on. So let's try to do so. And the way I'm going to do it, I'm going to use an init script for that, which is probably not the way I would do it. It's not quite proper, I would say, but it'll show you the capabilities of Gradle and tweakability of Gradle, and I hope it's going to impress you.
Have you already configured something special right now, or is it just apply plugin IDEA?
No, right now it's just apply plugin and be gone. I'm not even building it because it's going to take, it might take too much time. One more thing. So I generated this project, so it's kind of flat. So in MedMulti we have all those projects, right? In real life you would have more hierarchical approach, like kind of nested projects. And IntelliJ pretty nicely supports those nesting structures, unlike Eclipse.
Does that have an impact on performance to have more hierarchy? Because when you include a column, folder 1, column folder 2, column folder 3, all of those are projects as well, right?
Oh, I see what you mean. So you're asking if the sub-projects, right, should be also modules. I don't think it reduces the performance if they are projects.
It's arbitrary. Basically, in IntelliJ, all the projects represent a hash, and if you look at the project structure dialog, you can reference arbitrary source code subtrees. I have one bizarre build that does that.
Okay. Hope it answers your question. And I do have some project dependencies so that this example is kind of more spicy. So for example, project 10 depends on project 6 for blah, blah, blah. Because what's going to be important is that this narrowing the scope into several projects needs to be smart enough and needs to replace certain dependencies, right? So certain projects, sometimes called source dependencies, have to be replaced with jar dependencies. So it has to be, it's not only just, show me 5 projects instead of 10, but also hack their dependencies. Okay, let's try doing that. Yeah. So I'm going to have a IDE workspace configuration file. Let's call it conf. It's going to have the projects I want to work on. Let's say project 1, project 2, project 3, and let's say project 10. Let's say this is my workspace. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the init script. I'm going to call it IDE workspace init. Yeah, it's fine. And I'm going to first maybe let me load the projects I want to work on. So file IDE workspace conf text. How do I do it easily? H, I guess.
Oh, you're passing the file now?
No, I'm just accessing the file from my init script. So let's create an array of included projects.
So you may want read line instead of text. Text gives you a single string.
Okay, like that.
Yeah, read lines, and it's a method.
Yeah.
Dot each, and you read each line.
Excellent.
And read lines is a method. You have to have the parents.
Oh yeah, thank you. I'd love to have a groovy guy just behind my back. included projects, I guess, and then projects to include included projects. Let's just, and then what I'm going to do is in the init script I have access to the Gradle object, and this guy has a after project method to hook up after the given project has been configured. So we will be hacking those projects, right? So let's do configured project 8, something like that. So let's just see whether this thing works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do Gradle clean IDEA, and I'm going to pass this init script. Hopefully this will show me some stuff. Okay, cool. So we see some stuff. We know which project we want to include, and we have a hook into the configuration phase. At the end of configuration, we can do something. Okay, so what's next? I want to only include certain projects that I'm interested in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to exclude certain modules from IntelliJ project. So let's take a look at the DSL reference for IntelliJ project. Okay. So IDEA project is a DSL element. If you apply IDEA plugin, you have access to the IDEA DSL element, and you can configure various things about project. And yes, there's a modules also method that I can only include certain modules. So let's do just that. So I'm going to need project element is only available on the root project, because that's how IntelliJ works, right? You have a single project, right, that wraps all the modules. Hence, our DSL sort of reflects that model, and only the root project has this IDEA project element. Therefore,
and even if you use the IDE plugins, you can configure things like in the same language, right? At least Eclipse picks that up. So if you configure Eclipse like that in the build script and set the source level or something, then and you import that using the STS plugin, it will reflect that information. So the same information that you use here for project generation is also exposed by the tooling API. So it makes sense to configure these things even if you use the pure IDE side integration.
So I needed to make this check because I want only this stuff to be applied to the root project, because only root project has the project element on the IDEA DSL extension. Hopefully it makes some sense. And modules. So I wanna include only certain modules. Actually, let's print all the modules so that you can see. So I'm gonna remove this debug statement. I'm gonna do all included modules. So for now, I'm not yet changing anything, but I'm just printing them. So if I do, I'm just going to run clean IDEA. It's going to be faster and it allows us to debug things. Oh, did not find property project. Is it after project? Let me just make sure. So the DSL reference, let's take a look at the Gradle object. And then let's see available methods.
Yeah, it's right there after project. Here.
Oh, there you go. Okay, so I'm good with that. So project, if project path equals, okay, cool. That should work. Let's try now. Okay. So it's only one all included modules, which does not seem right. I think it's because the other modules have not been evaluated yet. Might that be?
Yeah.
That's why they are not available. And one, I will need to check. Let me just quickly check into Gradle codebase, into the IDEA plugin. How do we actually map the modules? So IDEA project modules, project root projects from encapsulate and reuse, my favorite pattern. So modules. Yeah, let me just copy that stuff from our plugin. So I can't just refer to the modules at this stage, because after the root project is evaluated, the other projects haven't yet been evaluated, which means that the modules list has not been built. So I need to do something slightly different. So I go project, all projects, and then what I can do is find all, collect IDE module. Let's see if that works. Okay. No, I see one. Yeah, so the problem is that at this stage, when I iterate through, they don't still have IDEA modules. So I need something smarter. I had that working before. There is some smart idea how to work around that stuff. So how do I do that?
So would the Gradle project help instead of Gradle after project?
Yeah, maybe let's do that. I did it without that, but yeah. Okay. So there's a hook in Gradle that's executed after all projects are evaluated. So projects evaluated. Come again? So let's do this. Okay. Okay, so project, now projects evaluated does not give me
Gradle.root project if you want the root one.
Thank you very much. Gradle root project. That'll work. And then we know that root project, okay. So IDEA project. Since this is a root project, we know that it has an IDEA element and the project element. So let's go, let's actually print this one. Modules. Let's for now remove that one. So we've used slightly different lifecycle hook. We are hooking up after all projects have been evaluated. Okay. Yes, I see more stuff here. It's looking good. So all modules. So let's change those modules. Equals. Let's do something first. Modules. Modules. Find all. It. And then we are interested in modules that are included in our included projects list, right? So modules is an IDEA module, like an API element. So let's find it in our reference. We have IDEA module. Let's see what are the methods available on it. Actually, I'm going to use a certain trick. I'm going to take a look in the Gradle codebase, easier. And IDEA module does have the project, I think. There you go, there's a project. So, not sure how public this field is, but for my example, it might do. So, every IDEA module has a project, so I can do project path in included projects. So,
will you push this code to the Gradle codebase after you're done?
Oh, of course, it's beautiful. Yeah, okay. So now the modules that are used by IDEA will be modules. So first we get the modules, then we find all ones that are within the included projects, and then we just print them so that we can see them. Let's see how it goes. Let's print modules dot project path. That'll be better. It doesn't show it nicely. Well, it doesn't matter. I think it's going to work. So maybe just print size.
I think you have to just remove the star, and then it might start to work again.
Yeah, let's
Put
just
it in curly braces and it'll work.
let's just do this. It should include only those modules that I've selected. Now let's take a look what's going to happen if I do clean IDEA. So I expect if I import that into IntelliJ, I should see only those 5 projects as imported. Okay. Open mat IPR load project. There you go. So we've only included those 4 projects. So this is some success, but it's not yet finished. So what we need to do is that the project 10 has dependencies to project 6 and 4, which are not available, right? Project 1 and 3 works nicely, and 2 because they are modules imported. So what we need to do, we need to hack the dependencies so that they become jar dependencies. And I'm gonna do something simple. There are like multiple ways of achieving what I'm doing now, but hopefully the end result will be that you're gonna enjoy some of the Gradle flexibility. Okay, so let's get back to the init script. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook into I'm going to change the dependencies of the project. So it's going to be something like that. Project, configurations, each. And configuration, if we look in the API, has something like dependencies. Let's take a look. Gradle configuration. There's all dependencies and dependencies. So we have all the dependencies. Those are the dependencies that are not yet resolved, just the declaration of dependencies. And we want to replace the project dependencies with the jar dependencies. So find each, and let's say if dependency, for instance, of there's a project dependency. It's a part of our public API, so I think it's easier to show you that in IntelliJ for the. So we have a dependency top level interface for all our dependencies in Gradle. It is a public API, and it has a bunch of implementing interfaces, extending interfaces, and there's also a project dependency that has a dependency project. You have access to the dependency project. So if dependency is an instance of a project dependency, and dependency project, let me just make it, and dependency project not path not in included projects. So we've encountered a project dependency that is not within the bounds of our workspace, not in included projects. What we are going to do with that, we're going to replace it. So I think I'm going to for now, I'm just going to do something simple so we can debug that further. So excluded projects equals some list. And then we're going to put this dependency into the excluded, actually it's not project, but dependencies. So we have those. and those needs to be replaced with a jar dependency. So what I'm going to do now, conf dependencies each, to avoid some problems in mutating the list that I'm currently iterating, I'm going to just remove it here. Can I just remove all? I should be able to do this, right?
There is such a method.
Yeah, there is such a method that takes collection, right? That should generally work. So I think after that, we should see some differences after importing. So let's run it. I believe what's going to happen is that we're gonna remove those dependencies. So compilation will fail, but at least the project will import in nicer fashion. So I'll reload the projects. Let's take a look at the project 10. There you go. We have only 3 projects here. So the other dependencies, project dependencies, have been removed. Not yet what we want. We want to make a jar dependencies instead of it. So let's do this. Included dependencies each. And then what we're going to do is conf dependencies. I guess we would do add, and then project dependencies create. We're going to create a dependency out of that project dependency. Okay, and so new dependency. So I'm referring to the dependency handler, and I can create sort of headless dependencies that are not hooked up to the any configuration. I'll just create one here, and I need to pass a notation. So I'm going to use string notation. So project dependency interface implements dependency interface, which has group, version, and ID as far as I remember. So project dependency should implement dependency which has group, name, and version. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something like that. Project dependency group, project dependency name.
So we have some code of similar complexity in the Gradle build itself. We set up like Git and our formatting rules, all our formatting rules. So we always regenerate the stuff. We never manually change anything in our IDEA setup. If we don't like it, we change that code. We don't commit the files. We always regenerate from IDEA, and then from Gradle and IDEA will automatically refresh this, and that's how we get everything that we need to set in our IDE, no matter what it is. We just generate it.
I have no idea if it's going to work. 6 o'clock, let's escape. Eject, Peter. Okay, it's doing stuff, and it's doing stuff slowly. That's promising. Okay, cool. So now we're going to reload the project. Now the grade test. Yes, I think it's working. So now we have unresolved dependency because they are not deployed anywhere, but we can solve that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use, so I'm going to do all projects, apply, plugin Maven. I'm going to add repositories Maven local. I'm going to do Gradle install --minus parallel. So basically now I'm installing, well, it's going to fail because there's group and version is next. We'll see. Yay. Ooh. Failed to interpolate field. Whoa. I didn't expect that. Okay, let's do something simpler. I'm not sure what that problem was, but we have an unresolved dependency on project 4. So let's just do something simple. Project 4. Gradle install.
So in the real world, where would those dependencies come from then, the external ones?
Probably you would have to set up some convention for local repository. Because you have to exchange...
What about CI?
maybe a remote repository pushed by CI. So this is just an example. So project 4 is now installed. Let's try to do once again the clean. Oh, okay, because I'm in the wrong folder. Now I'm running again. What I expect to see is that we're going to fix one of those dependencies. It should be resolvable after I run that. And yes, please do reload yourself. Project number 10. Yeah, and you can see that. Where are you? I don't see it here.
Project 4 is up at the top.
Come again?
You're looking for Project 4?
Yeah. Yeah, Project 4 is not here, which I
Scroll up.
Project 4 unspecified, because that's a version of the.
When I
you haven't set the project
Here.
Yes, thank you very much, initially. Jesus. Yeah, unspecified because in theory version is an optional field. So if I specified version, that will be a jar dependency. With that, please don't let me code anything more. Hopefully it kind of sheds some light on the flexibility of Gradle. You could script something a little bit, like we spent 20 minutes on hacking something like that. You could make the settings.gradle file. So in Gradle, settings.gradle defines the structure of your multi-project build. Various our clients, and I think Peter has done that in one of the clients, you can script something in the settings.gradle so that the set of project is dynamic and they're only included if, let's say, the project 12 is checked out from the source control. My hacks were more geared towards IDE integration, so I wanted to have something like that. Okay, I can build from command line all those projects, but when I import them to IntelliJ, I just want to work on a fixed number of them. And given some more time, let's say a few more days or a few more hours, that can be nicely done, either via an init script that I've done it, or via some extra tasks that I would create. That would be probably a cleaner approach.
Yeah, so what we actually want to have is a sliding window where you as a developer can very easily define a subset of projects that your current focus, and everything else comes from somewhere else. Gradle build or CI or somewhere else, and that will become a first-class Gradle feature, not just for IDE integration, but it will become first-class in Gradle, like a partial build. You only check out a part of your build that you're interested in locally, and everything else comes from somewhere else. And once that becomes a generic Gradle feature, then the IDEs will pick it up in our plugins. And so far, I already implemented that once for a customer. We scripted that settings Gradle, so he would, in a separate file, declare his current working set, not on this granularity, but on a higher granularity, like I'm on this team, something like that. And then we scripted this here to only include a subset of projects and take everything else from CI. And if you do it here, then you get it everywhere, like you get it in the IDE for free. That's what we've done already, like for client work, but we don't have it yet in the Gradle distribution. Yeah. But on our way to Gradle 2.0 scalability, like this is, Hans Dr. always says, he will only put the 2.0 stamp on it if it's the most scalable build tool around, and even good enough for our biggest clients in terms of scalability. And by then, this will probably be a first-class feature. It's definitely coming.
So it's like Gradle scales nicely. Sometimes not out of the box, you need to script a little bit, but it's definitely possible. In future, Gradle will be even more fabulous because those kind of things will be out of the box, like aggregating builds and aggregating multiple multi-project builds into a single one, kind of working on the subset of builds and subset of projects. That will be like a top-level feature. Yes, tomorrow, next year, sometime soon.
Okay, I think we are out of time. I hope we could show you a little bit at least. I tried to show you the latest IntelliJ, although it's a pre-alpha developer build, but I think it's moving in the right direction. We know there's a lot more to do in terms of IDE support. I think we're already further ahead in everything else compared to IDE support. But with that, we still have time for a question or two. Other than that, thanks a lot for coming. Thanks a lot for coming to the Gradle Summit.
Yeah,
and hopefully see you next year.
We survived all sessions, guys.